Hello, I'm going to introduce a book from the 17th century this evening. This one is called Lexicon, Mathematicum, Astronomicum, Geometricum, and it's by an Italian who was in fact a Theatine, a member of a Roman Catholic order, a rather conservative order, at Capua in Italy. And I'm going to show you the title page in a moment. Perhaps can't see this all that clearly because of the lighting, but let's see what we can do. Now you can see the full title there, and you can also see a rather elaborate engraving on the title page, and at the bottom of the page the fact that this book was published in Paris in the year 1668. And I did a bit of research about this using a well-known reference called The History of Magic and Experimental Science by an historian called Lynn Thorndike. This is a very, very major work, runs to 8 huge volumes, and is really his lifetime study. In the 8th volume, which is here, we find an index to the 17th century, and actually at page 330 there's quite an extensive entry about this book. Now what Thorndike points out was that although the author, Vitali, was a member of a Roman Catholic order, he subscribed to the belief that genethliacal astrology, natural astrology, were not in any way a problem as far as the Catholic Church was concerned, because they didn't impinge on freedom of will. The only types of astrological judgment which impinged on freedom of will were ones which made precise predictions, and he didn't regard the use of astrological directions in astrology as having that effect. And in this view, according to Thorndike, he was strongly influenced by Placido, who was a very well-known astrologer around this time, having put out several works in the mid-17th century, also in Latin, just as this work is. Now it's worth noting that this work, although it contains a lot of definitions on geometry and astronomy and mathematics, has very, very extensive and lengthy entries on astrology as well, hence the controversy. Thorndike also notes that another edition of the book was put out in around 1690, and in this edition virtually all the astrological references were removed. And this leads me to wonder, now why did this happen? Was there a judgment that astrology was no longer scientifically interesting, or had the position of the Catholic Church become more conservative just over those few decades? This is something I do not know the answer to. I've only looked at this very briefly so far. However, there is a study which might, if one can speak Italian, shed more light on the matter by the Italian scholar of the history of astrology, Giuseppe Beza. And this study appears in the form of a preface to a modern monochrome facsimile reprint of the same book. And I'm holding a copy of this here. You can see it's a paperback, quite a large paperback, and inside it's identical to the original in terms of the actual content, except for the preface by Beza. So I'm really hoping that somebody who reads Italian and has looked at this study by Beza can shed more light on the matter. So that was an introduction to the work of Girolamo Vitali, the Lexicon, Mathematicum, Astronomicum, Geometricum. And that was what I had to discuss this evening. I hope you found that somewhat interesting. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.